Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wigan Fan TV. Myself, Mark, and Stu, and we're about to be rudely interrupted by the Wigan Runner. I can hear him trying to connect. He's running late again. Matthew, if you can see us, just pop your camera on, and you'll be on screen, and we'll sort of catch up with you wherever you are in the world. Mark, Stu, thank you for joining me this evening. Mark, are you well?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be back on. I'm sorry I've missed you for the last few weeks.
No, not a problem. And Stu, we were just discussing, we're going to come on to the New York and Ottawa sort of things later on, but Mark just pointed out that you're the closest person to New York and Ottawa, so we're assuming that you've only got positive things to say about them later on in the show.
Say that silent, Sean. That's the answer to your question.
I don't. The Wigan Runner. What are you doing apart from trying to disrupt? What are you doing?
I'm here. Sorry,
right.
guys.
Okay.
You know me. I'm all
right.
What's the picture that you've taken down? Was it like really offensive or something?
No.
Incriminating.
No, I usually take it down before a video, then I forgot when I just put the video on.
So you at least you're joining us. Last week you kicked us. Well, you kicked Stu off air, I think, about 4 times.
Yeah, I couldn't get on, could I? How you guys,
Millie,
by the way?
Mr. Millie, I'm still after you for that. So watch your back, son. Next time I see you.
Okay, pal. You always ask. Know what you mean.
So
yeah. I haven't said that for 2 weeks, and I've been watching me ring. It must be you that catches the curse. There you go.
I was watching you last week, even though I couldn't speak, and you didn't say it once. You didn't say it once.
2 shows. Yeah. Don't start.
Yeah, notice.
Right. Are we happy?
We're live, aren't we?
We are live. Yeah. Yeah, just a domestic between you two. Are you okay? You've sorted that out now.
No, we're back on.
Right, okay. So, Salford versus Wigan preview. There's only one place to start, which is another Wigan victory, this time over Hull KR last week. We'll pop the highlights onto the screen in just a moment. You three won't be able to see them. But Stu, start us off a scrappy win, but what are your thoughts on that game?
Scrappy win. Win's a win. 2 points in the bag. Top of the league. I wasn't, well, how could I put it? After we've bummed him up all week, and that sounds a bit wrong what I've just said about Marshall. He had a bit of a scrappy game, but we all have these things, don't we? So let's see how we performs against Salford. But as you say, 2 points, top of the league, move on to Salford. There you go. Next.
I think there's like kind of an Irish accent that came out from you then when you were saying top of the league. I don't know why, I just heard something Irish from you. Matthew, you thought another Wigan victory, top of the league. Not as convincing as the week before against Huddersfield, but your thoughts on that game?
Do you remember what score I predicted it would be?
Oh, here we go.
The game.
We weren't talking to you because you were banned for kicking everybody off. I'm just going to pull those down because they're covering. We're currently covering your face, Stu, with people's comments. I hope you don't mind.
It's all right, pal. Just leave us.
I thought that I predicted that we'd win by 14 points, did I not?
I don't know. You weren't on the show, so how could you have done?
In the comments.
Nobody reads the comments.
We all read the comments, and we welcome all the viewer comments whilst we're doing this show. Just not from Matthew last week.
I didn't get to. I think I saw just the very end of the game. In the end, I got to the end of the game, and obviously the scoreline suggests it was close, but. Was it in any doubt for you guys that went to the game? I haven't seen the highlights.
Well, the highlights are pretty much just going past your head at the moment. I know you can't see them. I mean, there's certainly times in that game where... I'll get Mark's thoughts in a moment, but I think the thing to be buoyed by that performance is perhaps the tries that we conceded weren't horrendous. They were horrendous tries to concede, and the fact that they were intercepts and sort of just mistakes, but the actual sort of defence... throughout the past sort of 4 or 5 weeks has looked pretty strong, and they're all kind of issues that you would like to think that we can iron out in terms of those conceding. But it felt like an important win in the sense that we needed to win like that. It wasn't pretty. Sam Powell barging over, that's on the screen at the moment, probably summed up that the way that we played at times. But Mark, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was never worried we were going to lose, but it was our weakest home performance so far in the league. It's obviously we lost away at Cass, and that wasn't a great performance either, but this wasn't our best performance by a long shot against a team that are down near the bottom. But you never felt it was in doubt because, like you say, our goal line defence. But I do want to pick up on what you said about the tries we're conceding.
Yeah.
Because Lamb said this after a few games, and I remember after the Hull FC game in particular, he said the tries we're conceding are weird tries. But it's kind of got to a point where our goal line defence is amazing. In fact, our entire defence, when we've not got the ball, is amazing. But our defence, our sort of transition into defence when we have got the ball and we make a mistake, it's got to be something we need to start working on, because all the tries we're giving up are where we've kind of dropped the ball or kicked the ball into someone's hands or thrown an intercept. So we need to sharpen that up, because it's the only part of our defence that's going wrong is our attack.
And we've had a few of those now, haven't we, in terms of Bevan French and another intercept. I think that's maybe 2 or 3 that we've had from him, which probably shows an area of his game that he's got to improve. As fantastic as he has been, there is that sort of area that he's got to work on. I know earlier on in the season he spoke about, and we've spoken about perhaps his fitness and actually getting into the game for 80 minutes he seemed to struggle with. And then Liam Marshall, Stu, you just touched on it. Considering that hat-trick performance and that incredible try that he scored at Huddersfield, probably just sort of brought him back down to earth a little bit in that Hull KR game for that. Stu, are you concerned about the defence? Like Mark's saying, we've had that incident now over sort of 4 or 5 weeks where we're producing fantastic goal line defence, but teams are still scoring against us.
We just need to tweak our game management a bit there. It's like, is there any need to do these daft passes? Is there any need to think it? You know what I mean? I think that's the problem. Just a little bit of tweaking. Apart from that, all the rest of the defence is spot on. That's the only issue where it's just a little bit of tweaking.
And is it a case of be careful what you wish for? We all wanted entertaining rugby, and I guess a byproduct of entertaining rugby is that risk.
Yeah. I don't think there's a worry, really. I was sort of being a bit. That's the only way we are conceding. We, like Shu says, occasionally maybe hold the ball in, but most of the time, it's fun. It's fun to watch, and even watching them try and chase them down isn't the worst thing to watch. We conceded 2 breaks in that game, so Hull KR again made a ton of offloads, just like every team has against us so far this season, and we only gave up 2 breaks, and they were both the times where Braley picked up the loose balls and ran past us, sort of thing. So our defence that's phenomenal. I mean, everyone in the stands is like, "Oh, why are we not wrapping up the ball? Why are we not wrapping up the ball?" It's not hurting us. So I think the defence is phenomenal at the moment.
We've got a comment here from Scott Marshall. Don't know if he's related to Liam Marshall. Marshy still made it in Sky's Team of the Week. So what the hell were the rest of the league's wingers doing?
It might have been based on statistical performance, because he still had a couple of breaks. He still had 140 odd metres. So I don't know if that's why, or maybe they just didn't properly watch the game
or they just didn't take him out from the week before.
First half was littered with errors, but hey, he deserved a bit of a ropey half after an absolutely outstanding game the week before.
There's a couple of things off the back of that. Matthew, this week our sort of discipline has been called into question again. We've got Rob's comment somewhere on here, our resident Cats fan, saying, "Have you covered Flower's pitiful ban yet?" So Ben Flower banned for 2 games for a cannonball tackle, and Oliver Partington banned for 4 games for a cannonball tackle. Are you concerned about the tackling technique, Matthew? That's lengthy bans for two of our starting props there over the next few weeks. Do you think it is a return of the grubbiness? Are you concerned about that? As he's gone all frozen on me. I'll put that to you, Mark, while Matthew gets himself sorted.
Yeah, I'm concerned about anything.
Sorry,
is he back? Go on, Mark. Go on. You talk us through.
Yeah, I am concerned because I don't want to see our team make bad tackles. I think since Lamb's come in, a lot of that side of things has fallen away from our game. Maybe there was a game at Wakefield last year. Young Joe Shorrocks in particular had a bad tackle, but most of the time we've been getting it right. We've been pinning the legs rather than attacking the legs, and in this game we got it wrong twice. And in terms of the length of the bans, it's not for us to comment on, and certainly it's not for something for people to start slagging Wigan off for, because the length of the bans are determined by the match review panel and the independent judiciary as well. So I do
wonder what they deem the difference between Flowers and Partingtons to be. from that camera angle.
They're graded one grade different, and
yeah.
I've looked at them a few times to try and work out what the difference is, and I think Partington goes in with a bit more force. I think he goes in with a bit more force because he's trying harder to stop the player making ground, but it's still a nasty tackle that shouldn't have happened. I think that's why he's coming from a bit further away. He's probably had a little bit longer to think about it than Flower has, but both of them were bad tackles, and I'm glad both of them have got a ban. If I'm honest, that's probably an unpopular opinion amongst our fan base, but I'm glad both of them got a ban. And Ben Flower actually was lucky not to get anything for the late hit, I thought, on Joe Keys, even though Keys went right to the line. And I just don't want to see it out of our players. I want to see the fun stuff, not the grubby stuff.
And I think it's important that we're getting that ban now, isn't it? And hopefully addressing that as a potential issue so early on in the season. Adrian Lamb spoke about it today in his pre-match press conference as well, about how that's not reflective about what they've been doing in training. So hopefully that'll start being stamped out now.
Can I make one more point on that and them tackles? Because the whole KR fans seem to be thinking Sam Powell had a bit of a similar one on Matty Staunton earlier in the game. Now they don't understand what the way that these things are officiated or ruled on. I don't think then, because on the Sam Powell one, Sam Powell came in what you would call passively. He didn't attack the legs. He put his arms around the legs. He didn't put his shoulders in. He didn't put any force into it. He basically made it so that the two players wrestling with him above could bring him to ground, and that's the correct way to execute that kind of tackle, and the way it gets executed by all the teams that haven't been doing it wrong, and us earlier this season until this week when we haven't been doing it wrong as well. So they need to sort of wind the neck-ins on that, the whole KR fans, but otherwise totally justified comments about
Angry Mark.
about the two where the bans have been caused, because they were terrible tackles and bans, grade C and grade D, both well deserved.
Stu, I'll get your thoughts on it in a second. Matthew, this weekend you had your sportsman's dinner with Sean O'Loughlin. How did that go? How's his eye looking? Is it intact? And tell us a little bit about how much money you've raised for the Dodgeball team as well.
It was a brilliant night. Thanks, Sean, for asking that, actually. He said that he's a few weeks away now, but he's saying it's still a little bit blurred as well. I think he was seeing a specialist about it. But yeah, it was a brilliant night. He's such a good guy, Sean. He really is. He was brilliant with the Q&A. I did a live video of the Q&A as well, and he was like, I love it when he's talking. He's just saying things over the eye. He's not trying to say what people want to hear. He's just saying who it is. And it was a great night. I think we raised £6,200.
Wow.
Which is incredible. Yes, we've raised now nearly 14,000 towards Cairo.
I bet you'll be flying first class.
20,000. No, I wish. Well, it's funny you say that, actually, because at the moment we're not sure whether we should even book the flights because it's coronavirus. Because if an airline cancels the flights, well, then the government haven't.
Completely
Said to you, we suggest you don't fly there. You can't claim on your holiday insurance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you need that in place, don't you?
We're not.
I think the government are trying to shut him down.
Yeah, I think you've got coronavirus in your Wi-Fi at the minute, Matthew. We'll come back to you. That was amazing because the speed just caught up with you, and you've just said that at 200 miles an hour. So we might have to slow that down later on. But I think everything that you said was good. You've raised a lot of money, but you can't book your flights yet. Yeah?
That's right, because of coronavirus.
Right, brilliant. Back over to you. We spoke over the past few weeks about getting Ben Flower into this team. He gets his opportunity to get in the team and then picks up a 2-match ban. Your thoughts on the bans? We've got a 2-match, a 4-match ban, and that we'll take that sort of into the Salford game of who may replace him in just a moment. He's not doing himself any favours or in his first game back, is he? Stu?
Definitely not. I agree with Stato, what he said. And our codheads over that East Yorkshire lot need to calm themselves down there. You know what I mean? We don't make the rules. That's what the RFL are there for. What's happened. We deal with it. We move on. Give the lads a chance now. The rest to move in. It's like You've got Bullock waiting in the bay there. You've got Mitch Clark waiting, Hevard, Byrne. Give them a chance. As you say, these are their chance now. These lads are out. There's your chance. There's the stage. Perform. If you don't perform, hook around the neck, yank them off, put them in the feet. End of.
We've got a few comments going in the comments about the definitions of what the right tackling technique is. So we're just putting that. Oh, he's coughing. That's not. The thing. Whoa! If anybody sees that, they'll be round. So yeah, we've got a few comments about what the right tackling technique is, and sort of perhaps the difference between Ben Flower and Oliver Partington's tackles there, and Sam Powell's tackle as well. So moving from that, before we move on to the Salford game, Matthew, we'll start with you, just because you'll start off slow and then it'll sort of gather momentum as your Wi-Fi sort of kicks in. This week, you may have seen Ottawa and New York have been brought into Rugby League. It's been confirmed. So we've got Ottawa entering League One in 2021, which is basically a rebranding of Hemel Stags into the league, and then New York will be hopefully joining, depending on how you feel about this, from 2022, entering the Challenge Cup next year. Talking about NRL friendlies being played in New York next year, perhaps Super League friendlies, international games. They reckon they're going to get a full calendar of fixtures, which I'm a little bit pessimistic about how you can do that during a season. But your thoughts on the expansion, Matthew, before we go to Stu and get him wound up a little bit more on it?
So it's funny you say that. I was speaking to Sean about that on Saturday, and I read obviously that Ottawa coming in, and my understanding was that New York was going to be the next team, so I was surprised to hear that Ottawa was coming in before New York. But how do I describe this so it's in negative? Where does this end? Like, can a team come out from Mexico next year? Or a team come, but why are they all from Canada and America? Why are we going across the Atlantic? Can a team pop up? Because wasn't there a team in Serbia recently? Was it last year or trying to qualify?
Still there, yeah. Red Star Belgrade is still going.
Yeah. So why are they not given a chance? Is that because there's not as much commercial value in them? I mean, where is this going to end? Why are they playing in Super League rather than NRL? Do you know what I mean? Because eventually, how are clubs going to be able to, would they go to Ottawa and Toronto separately, or would those two games be week after week? Because suddenly you're thinking, the small clubs in Super League, how is this sustainable? Is Ottawa going to be paying for people to fly over there, or are the teams going to fly over? Or what if the team says, well, we can't afford to send the team up? Do you know what I mean? Am I typing in the wrong thing?
No, I think there's a few. I think what we'll try and do is balance this argument up, because I think I think the two people on the bottom of the screen may have similar opinions as me and Mark at the top of the different opinions. Sorry, to me and Mark at the top of the screen on this. I think a couple of points that you've made. I think Ottawa and Toronto, you would think if Ottawa got to Super League, that would be the logical thing. And you play Ottawa one week and then Toronto another week, where it can be done. It creates a bit of a nice tour, doesn't it? And that's even saying that Ottawa will get to Super League, and even saying that Toronto would sustain in Super League. I think in terms of them paying for flights, that's certainly what Toronto do at the moment. That's been part parcel of what they do. Even from League One, they've paid for the teams to go over and play against them. And I think it's about where the money comes from, really, in terms of sustaining these clubs as teams. You've got Eric Perez behind them, who said he's addicted and he's dedicating his life to rugby league now, and unfortunately that we don't really have that on the M62 corridor to bring in other teams or bring a team in Cumbria, as we've spoken about, or elsewhere. I'm really excited about it. We'll get Mark's thoughts, and then we'll try and even it up a little bit with Stu, who's as we said, the person closest physically to New York. But Mark, your initial reactions to that?
I'm pro expansion. I really like the idea of bringing more fans into the sport. I don't think we've achieved that when we've tried some of the expansion routes in our own country, or within the UK. We've done things wrong, of course, which is part of why that's happened. And there's things being done wrong right now in Toronto as well as things being done right. I do worry with Ottawa where the finances are coming from, but they have confirmed that at least in the initial periods they'll pay for all flights and accommodation, and then they'll review that as it goes. So I think if they'll get into Super League, they'll probably say, if you're going to withhold our funding like you are with Toronto, then you can pay your own flights because you've got more money than we've got. You've got our money, basically. New York, their investors have said that they're going to support it for 5 years. I'm more impressed with the New York proposal because I can actually see some commercial partners that are willing to be shown off as the commercial partners of the New York franchise, whereas I haven't seen any of that with the Ottawa franchise. But Ottawa bought a license, didn't they? Yeah. So it was harder for the RFL to say no to someone who actually owned a license to be in the competition, which is a bit strange. I think hopefully we'll learn lessons from some of the things that haven't worked so well with Toronto. And I get where Matthew's saying, where does it end? But where does it end if we keep just getting 4,000 people rocking up to Wakefield or Salford or Huddersfield? Where does that end? That ends in the sport going broke. So we've got to look at where does it end from both ends of the spectrum, and ultimately, I hope it goes well, and I hope actually we get a bigger Super League, so you don't get people being forced out. We get a bigger, richer Super League where there's more commercial partners want to come on because there's more exciting product that they can be part of. The main worry, is there's no new players yet, and Ottawa are saying it's going to take a generation. New York are saying we're going to try and actually develop over the next 12 months, develop people from other sporting backgrounds or from our own domestic competition into potential players for League One. But they're very optimistic with what they're saying around all that New York. But I hope it all comes off. It all comes off in the end. It's just where are we going to get the extra players from is the only question for me.
And that's a comment that I've just put on the screen now from Anthony. He says, where are the players coming from? The player pool is small as it is. And I think in the short term, I think that's probably addressed by the fact that they can tap into Hemel Stags and the sort of League One sort of pool at the minute, and pretty much what Toronto did. I think it's as they get further up that ladder where the issues lie.
And in the medium term, some of the decent players that are falling out of the game at, say, 19, 20, 21, might be sticking around the game because of the reserves, and also might stick around the game because there's another place that they can go and play now where they can get paid well rather than get paid peanuts to go and play at Hunslet. That might not have been enticing for a lead junior who's kind of like fallen out of love a bit with the game. But going and playing and getting paid well for Toronto or the Aces or New York might appeal more for them to stay in the game.
Stu, your thoughts on this as a sort of resident grump? You're not happy about it?
You guys are all waiting. I just thought I'll keep his wait a little bit longer. Look, everybody deserves a chance, right? That's all I'm saying. Don't get me started on it. I don't want to get started on it. There you go. There's my answer. As for leaving me to the course, can't help it. Maybe put a franchise on. There you go. Wigan Fan TV, bought till New York. There you go.
You wanted to say Cairo then, didn't you?
All right. I was going to, but no, leave that out.
I mean, it's interesting times, isn't it? I think that there's another thing. Obviously, Super League are trying to look for external investment at the moment as well from a private equity deal. And there's comments there from Steve Mascord that's potentially closer than it has been. How close that means it is, I'm not entirely sure, but that brings a new dynamic into it as well. If a private equity firm is investing into Super League in the same way that it's invested into the Premier League in rugby union, that could potentially bring more cash in to sustain players from the NRL and potentially redress or address the salary cap issue.
It depends how much money they want to take out, though.
It does.
Depends how much blood they suck out, because everything below the Rugby Union Premiership is essentially completely screwed. So, there's a rub to that.
There is. There's consequences, isn't there? And I think when that comes in, it has to come in. Otherwise, I think the sport's dead very soon. When that comes in, I think it will be a case of you need to then decide what the Super League looks like, or certainly what the Super League 1 and Super League 2 looks like if they go down that. But it will be ring-fenced equity, because it's not promotion and relegation is going to be the biggest issue when a private equity deal comes in, because how on earth you address that when you've got private money coming in, I'm not entirely sure. So that's got to be addressed. Anyway, that's Ottawa. Matthew looks like he's about to fall asleep, so we'll move on. So
He likes falling asleep. He just dreams of being back up on that stage with Sean, doesn't he? Look at him.
So, moving on, we'll move on to the Salford game in just a moment. A very significant piece of news, Matthew, today. Liam Marshall has extended his contract at Wigan. Well deserved, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. He's been good, hasn't he? And obviously that try was incredible to his son, and he's at a good time as well. So hopefully he'll stay for the. How many years has he extended it for?
2023. So we've got another 3 seasons from him at least,
with an option of another.
So it's good. It's a good sign. I think the questions there become again over Joe Burgess in the squad again this week. Contract ends at the end of this season. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Joe Burgess over the next few weeks. Conscious of time, so let's move on to the game. Salford versus Wigan. Stu, I'll come to you first in terms of the squad. We've got 2 new names in the squad this week. Ben Flower and Oliver Partington, obviously, as we've spoken, dropped out. James McDonnell and Harry Rushton come into the 21-man squad. With those in the squad, and you've got Bullock and Clark that didn't play last week, how would you go about the team for Friday night?
I'll start with Bullock, and I'll probably Havard start with. I'm a bit concerned with Mr. Burgess on Sunday. After his performance against Huddersfield, I'll be honest with you, I don't think the lad's quite not fit. He needs a bit more time, but we'll give him it. But that's what I would go with on Friday night. I was going to say Sunday there. It's always all the Sunday games. But with Friday, I'd definitely go for that. Set off with that.
Mark, yourself, in terms of the team, you've got what's looking more like a settled spine in the team now after a few games with Smith coming from the bench. You've got 2 youngsters there who may or may not make their debut. What would you do?
I don't expect the 2 kids to get in, but it's good for them. They've got first team squad numbers. So that's a big moment for them in their Wigan careers. I don't expect them to come in unless someone goes down during the week, though. I do think that Bullock has to come back in. I think it was a bit of a shame that he was left out, to be honest, last week. But Havard came in and was brilliant. Maybe played 5 minutes longer than he needed to, and I'm not sure why Smithies didn't come back on the pitch, but he's rested up because he didn't play a lot of minutes last week, and he looked no injuries or anything. So I'd be starting with Havard and Byrne, because Byrne seems to be the one that Lamb relies on for minutes. Havard was brilliant though last week, so he's earned that spot on the starting sheet, I think, this week, with Burgess and Bullock to come off the bench. I'd be torn between whether I go Hankinson or Clark as my final substitute option. And by the way, I'd be starting Harry Smith. Harry Smith has outplayed Luluai in the half-back positions in the last 3 or 4 games when he's come on the pitch. He's such a clever half-back. We've had immeasurably talented half. We can't quantify the talent that George Williams had and still has, but I would say Harry Smith is the smartest halfback I've seen come through the club in years, and I'd be playing him ahead of Tommy. And sorry, Tommy, because I love you and your granite shoulders, but there you go.
A couple of things that we'll come back to. One of the things on Ethan Havard, there's a few comments in here about Havard being out of contract at the end of the season, and he's potentially the next to get the contract extension, with talks ongoing, I think it says in the comments, which is really positive.
Storm are after him though, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean,
and I think they have been for a while. I think they were interested in before he even played in the first team, to be honest.
I mean, I would hope that we could sign him up, but I mean, it's one of those where it feels a bit like Ryan Sutton in his early days, where the NRL were interested in Ryan Sutton well before he went. So hopefully we can stave off that at such a young age. I'm going to, before I come to you, Matthew, and ask you about your thoughts on what you would do with the 2 youngsters, whether you bring them in. Last year we had a thing about Morgan Escaray. We kind of banned Morgan Escaray on the show. The constant question about when will Escaray play, when will Escaray get in the team, and we kind of banned it, even though we carried on talking it. And somebody who should know far better, Philip Tomlinson, we're going to ban this topic, which is Bevan French in the halves. Why is that even? Why is that even on the agenda of your thoughts? We've got Harry Smith, we've got Jackson Hastings, we've got Thomas Luluai. and we've got Bevan French playing fantastically well at halfback. I'm naming you and shaming you, Philip, and that is not going to be discussed. That's the new Morgan Escaray for this season. That is the thing. That is the thing that we won't be talking about. Shame on you, Philip. Moving on. There's just going to be a lot of people agreeing with him now. Matthew, so this week we've got 2 youngsters in the squad. Would you like to see them make the debut, bearing in mind we're away from home, or would you like to see Bullock and Clark come in as straight replacements?
No, I think it's right. It's a good chance to give them an opportunity, isn't it? How old are they both, by the way?
18, are they? 19?
They both qualify still for the under-18s, so I think last year was their first year in the 19th system, which is now the 18th system. To be fair, is it McDonald? He seems to have started the season pretty well from the highlights from the Leeds game last week. And Rushton's a tough grafter, the kind of player probably Sean Wayne would have liked, but I think it's too early for the young kid, even though, yeah.
So Matthew,
they've got to start at some point, haven't they? So let it be this weekend when they play Salford, and even away as well. I think it away from the limelight with it not being at home. So I think it's a lower key game, if you can call it.
But it's on telly, Matthew. You've got this big thing about it being on telly.
Yeah. So it's good that it's on TV, and yeah, you're right with that. Obviously, the cameras are on, but as opposed to being at home, I think, obviously, I think it's fine. Give them a chance. See how they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what Mark just said there. I think there's a big step for them there, isn't there? Getting first team numbers. That feels like what this week is potentially about for them. We've spoken about it on the show previously about giving people that experience of being in the match day squad, because it is really the first time that they would have been around that and getting to travel with the first team squad. But with Clark and Bullock in there, you feel like you've got 2 ready-made replacements, probably to slot in on the bench. I would think. And personally, I would like to see George Burgess go back to starting prop. I think he had a great impact against Huddersfield. Struggled a little bit last week, but hopefully he'll be fit enough to start this week. And using Matthew's sort of philosophy, shine on camera, because the cameras will be on him and people will be watching him, and that's what we need from our marquee players. Stu, anything? Yeah. We sort of dismissed. I dismissed, I must say, Salford for most part of last season to sort of end up with egg on my face after the semi-final. Looking at that Salford team at the moment, struggling for form, missing the best, probably the best 2 players from last season who are now playing for Wigan. Do you see any concerns about Friday night?
Could be a bit of an arm wrestle, to be honest with you. Hostile our Salford lot can be, and they were wanting to put a dent in us, weren't they? But I think with Billy Wiz at the back, our new Billy Wiz, I like to call him now, Bevan, and the old Hastings coaches there, I think we'll do all right, Sean. It'll be a tight game, but coming into the weekend, I think we'll still be top of the league. There you go.
And your score prediction for this week, Stu?
You said this after last week. Salford 14, Wigan 24.
Matthew, your thoughts on how the game will go? Salford, obviously, with Dan Sargison in the ranks now as well to join numerous other Wigan players. How do you see the game going? Does Salford pose a big enough threat for Wigan?
You'll be happy to hear that. I think we're going to win for a start.
Wow.
Don't worry about it getting bad. I think. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he plays against Wigan. Doesn't he have to leave? And I was sad to see him leave last year. So I think Salford, like what Stu said, they'll get 14 or 16, and I think we'll win by about 4 to 6.
Okay.
We'll win by about 4 to 6 points.
Mark, as the founding member of the Dan Sargison Appreciation Club, obviously he started the season really well at Salford, didn't he? Getting a few tries, and he's even got himself a little show on the Super League Facebook page as well, where he does a few videos as well. So the character of Sargison seems to be coming through. Do they pose a big threat for Wigan on Friday night, and how do you see it going?
Well, if they have Sargison in the side, they certainly are better at getting out their own end, because that guy will work his arse off for them. And Kevin Brown, James Greenwood, that's 2 more people that are ex-Wigan players in the squad that compared to what they had last year. But Niall Evans is the real threat. If you watch their highlights from this year, he probably isn't getting the same amount of opportunities, but boy, is he taking some great opportunities and working well with Lola here and Kensio. So we have to be careful on our left edge defence that we don't go flying out of the line like we did last week a few times and that sort of thing. But hopefully we'll cover that up because we're good defensively, and I think we'll win. I don't think they'll do much against us because we are so good defensively. So I'll go 20-10. I think we need to sort of have a little bit of a think about reining it in a little bit on the away from home kind of game, and they've got some quick players. But 20-10 Wigan.
It feels like this game's like
never in threat, but not like a cakewalk.
It feels like the next step in this sort of real test to see how good this Wigan side actually are. We talked about 2010 last week or 2017. Which kind of season is it going to be? And we're sort of swaying towards the 2010 season, I think, at this moment in time. Mainly for me, for the strength and depth of this squad. I think when I was looking at the 2010 squad, and you look at the players that were in that squad but didn't play in the grand final, for example, the likes of Bailey, the likes of Carl Price, who I think probably played about 4 or 5 games that season, who added to the squad. Paliacina, who didn't play in that grand final. Amos Roberts, who was out injured. You take those sort of big names out of that team, and we had players like Liam Farrell coming through. Sam Tompkins established himself at fullback. We had these squad players that could go around. And this for this week, we take out Ben Flower, who's been a starting prop for over a good number of years for Wigan now. We're not really that concerned that we're missing Ben Flower, which probably feels strange compared to maybe this time last year. Oliver Partington, yeah, he's going to be a big miss, but we've got players to replace them now. So that squad depth looks really, really healthy for Wigan, doesn't it? But I feel like this is a big test away from home again, similar to the Huddersfield game, and hopefully a similar result to that Huddersfield game. I think we'll get over 30 again. I think our attack is starting to fire. I think that left edge with Liam Farrell and Jackson Hastings is even more exciting than it could have been at times with Williams and Gildart, which is going to cause you massive issues.
The golden edge.
The golden edge, I think, is now
this isn't golden yet.
This is platinum. This has the potential to be platinum because I feel like there's a new dynamic to Liam Farrell playing with Hastings, and it's not the same kind of runs that we know from Liam Farrell. And having that support player of Bevan French in there just creates a new dynamic to the team, which I don't think we saw with Hardacre at fullback, and certainly previously before that, Sam Tompkins is a completely different player. So there we go. I think Wigan will win probably about 32-10. I do think we'll get over the 30 mark again.
Wow.
I think it's about defensively, again, I'm curious to see what kind of tries, if any, we concede, and just what's worked on. And obviously our tackling technique is going to be well scrutinised this week, as we all know. So
wearing the yellow shirt as well.
Yeah, first venture for the yellow shirt as well, which feels nice. I'm a little bit disappointed that they've not waited until Magic to wear it for the first time. I think the anticipation of seeing them wear it, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's a shirt, isn't it? It doesn't really matter.
Let's hope the referee doesn't wear yellow horse. We're different screwed. Men on the pitch.
Some people will say that he's wearing whatever colours Wigan are in, regardless of the actual colour of his shirt.
Just before we go, there's a few.
If Rob's still watching, he'll say that.
There's a few comments about concern about Jackson Hastings being involved in the car crash yesterday. He put a post on Instagram where the side of his BMW, I think it was a BMW, had been bashed into. He said that he had a little bit of whiplash. The fact that happened yesterday and he's still been named in the squad, I don't think there's any real concern over that. But there's a few people in there that are saying, asking questions about Jackson Hastings. I think he'll be fine. But if not, it doesn't matter. We've got Harry Smith, so we'll be absolutely fine. Matthew, what number run are you up to before we go?
1,166. I did earlier today. Did it in the morning with BBC Radio Manchester came to talk to me while we was running. So that was a fun experience, yeah.
Fantastic, well done. Mark, Super League pod this week, anything of particular note for Wigan fans to keep their ears out for?
We obviously spoke about the nasty tackles. That was before we had the bans confirmed. But Saints lost, so that was fun to talk about.
Yeah, obviously.
Lost at home, first time since Warrington beat them in the Super 8s. Now I finally worked out it was the semi-final actually 2 years ago or something. Last time they lost at home, so that was fun. I enjoyed talking about that as well as the Wigan win.
And Stu, you're going to be looking at buying a boat over the next few weeks to charter that ferry over to New York for 2022. Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for.
Get away with yourselves, man.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Enjoy the game on Friday night, whether you're going there or watching it on Sky. And we'll catch up with everybody next week after Wigan still be top of the table. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us.
See you later.